The galaxy watched in a kind of collective, uncomfortable silence as the broadcast began, one of those rare moments when millions of species, hundreds of cultures and countless governments all paused simply because no one wanted to be the first to look away. At the center of the screen, framed by banners of jeweled steel and burning solar emblems, stood the Galactic King. His crown hummed with static, his robes glittered with the powdered bones of conquered worlds, and his eyes held the kind of arrogance that could only come from someone who had never been told no in his entire life. His voice rose theatrically as he declared, with all the pomp he could summon, that 5 million human women had been judicially executed for crimes against the crown, though he never specified which crimes required killing half a continent's worth of civilians. Across the galaxy, reactions fluttered like sparks thrown from a bonfire. Some species applauded politely, others roared triumphantly. Drone-like beings clicked in approval, and tentacled diplomats scribbled notes describing how efficient the executions must have been. Only a few ancient creatures, species older than the stars humanity had barely begun naming, stared at the recording with something like dread. They remembered what had happened the last time humans were pushed too far. They remembered the silence that came before the counterstrike, the way humanity held its breath like a diver preparing to drown the ocean that wronged them. Yet still, the general mood in the Senate chambers remained light, almost celebratory. No one asked where the humans were. No one wondered why their usual ambassadors were not present to protest, shout, cry, or threaten lawsuits over interstellar radio channels. No one noticed that Earth's communication networks had gone quiet, not damaged, not destroyed, just paused like a game someone set down for a moment. Only one man seemed out of place in all this. He arrived late, walking with a casual, unhurried rhythm through the Senate doors. His uniform was crisp, navy blue with subtle silver threading that shimmered like moonlit waves. His dark hair was neatly combed, his posture confident without being imposing, and his smile, gentle, warm, disarmingly friendly, had a way of putting people at ease while simultaneously unsettling them, though they never really understood why. He was introduced simply as Ambassador Daniel Reed, but every human knew his other title, Tactician of the Red Lines. To everyone else, he looked harmless enough. "Apologies for the delay," Daniel said, offering a courteous nod to the assembled delegates. "Traffic. You know how hyperspace lanes get during peak political hours." Several species blinked. A few emitted confused buzzing sounds. He was joking, which already made them nervous. Humans joked in inappropriate moments. Humans joked when they were angry. Humans joked when they were planning things. The king regarded him with a smirk. "Ah, a representative of the mammals. Come to beg for mercy?" Daniel's smile deepened. "Oh, I don't beg, Your Majesty. But thank you for the assumption." A ripple of uneasy chitters echoed through the hall. Daniel continued walking, hands clasped behind his back, eyes drifting across the holographic display that still showed the execution footage. "I see you've been busy," he said casually, as though commenting on weather. "Busy restoring order," the king corrected. "Of course," Daniel murmured. "But 5 million human women, that's a very specific number. Quite a lot of work. I hope you had a good reason." The king waved a jeweled hand dismissively. "Reasons are for equals. The weak do not require explanations." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "I see. So the executions were for entertainment purposes. A performance, really." Somewhere in the stands, a reptilian envoy gasped. He understood the trap instantly. The king, of course, did not. Daniel's smile never faltered. "Humans appreciate clarity. We're emotional creatures. Very sentimental. When someone takes 5 million of our people, especially women, we tend to take it personally." The king laughed loudly. "What will your kind do? Cry? Mourn? Send strongly worded letters?" Daniel chuckled softly. "We do enjoy letters. But no, Your Majesty. We mourn first. Then we think. Then we act. Usually in that order." A few delegates exchanged uneasy glances. The king leaned forward. "You humans cannot even defend your outer colonies. You are primitive, chaotic, disorganized." "Oh, absolutely," Daniel agreed. "We are a disorganized species. We're messy. We spill things. We argue a lot. But interestingly, we become very organized when grieving. A hush fell. A mechanical species whispered to another. Is he threatening us or describing a psychological condition? Daniel stepped into the center of the hall. A soft beep chimed in his ear, an encrypted message. He didn't need to read it. The timing told him everything. Proceed with Operation Open Door, Phase 0. He cleared his throat. If I may, esteemed delegates, humanity extends its gratitude for your patience with us. We've been reflecting, processing. You understand how emotions can become turbulent. A silica-based creature jittered. What does that mean? It means we needed a moment. Daniel's tone softened, like someone comforting a child. After all, 5 million is a large number. Hard to grieve properly in public. The king scoffed. Are you stalling? Not at all, Daniel replied. I'm simply giving you a heads up. Human silence rarely means surrender. It usually means preparation. Murmurs erupted. Preparation for what? How prepared? Why is he smiling like that? Daniel lifted a hand politely. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. You'll see shortly. As if on cue, the chamber lights flickered. The holograms trembled. The floor vibrated faintly, not like a tremor, but like a quiet heartbeat pulsing through metal walls. What is happening? A feathered diplomat shrieked. Daniel checked his wrist console with mild interest. Oh, wonderful timing. Phase 0 is complete. The king slammed his staff. Explain. Daniel's smile brightened. Certainly. You know how humans love disappearing acts. The Senate screens changed abruptly, displaying galaxy maps that once marked human fleets with blue dots. Every blue dot blinked out. Gone. Not destroyed. Not scattered. Simply missing. The king paled. Where are your fleets? Repositioned, Daniel said simply. We like to tidy up before we get emotional. An amphibious ambassador trembled. Tidy up? Yes. Daniel clasped his hands again. Grief can be messy, but vengeance should be neat. The hall shook harder. This time, the sound echoed like distant thunder. A communications officer screamed, reading thousands of hyperspace signatures. Daniel sighed softly as though mildly inconvenienced. Ah! They're early. The king roared. What is this madness? Daniel met his gaze with calm, unblinking warmth that was somehow more frightening than any display of rage. Your Majesty, he said quietly, you executed 5 million human women, and humanity doesn't handle loss very well. But don't worry. We're extremely civilized about our responses. The lights went black. A single transmission echoed through the darkened chamber, spoken in a cold, mechanical human voice that made even the bravest species tremble. Operation Alien Extinction 2.0, Phase 1 initiated. And then the stars themselves seemed to scream. The darkness that swallowed the Senate chamber lasted no more than 3 seconds, but that was long enough for several species to shriek, others to activate biological defense glands, and a few to faint outright. Ambassador Daniel Reed didn't move. He stood calmly in the center like a man waiting for a kettle to finish boiling, hands clasped neatly behind his back, humming a quiet tune that only made the silence heavier. When the lights surged back on, their sudden brilliance revealed a chamber frozen in panic. Delegates scrambled to regain their composure, feathers ruffled, scales puffed, tentacles twitching, eyes darting in every direction as if expecting human soldiers to fall from the ceiling. Daniel exhaled softly. Everyone all right? He asked politely, scanning the room with genuine warmth. I hope no one was injured. Sudden darkness can be startling. Humans learned that from horror films. Several species recoiled. The king, who had remained rigid throughout, slammed his hand on the throne console. Explain that transmission, he demanded. Explain why your fleets vanished. Daniel offered the gentlest smile. I'll try, Your Majesty, though human technology can be complicated. But the simple version is this. Humanity decided to stop playing nice. He walked toward the center map display, which flickered to life as he approached. The blue dots marking human fleets were gone, replaced by empty voids. Void wasn't the right word. They looked like wounds cut into the map, as though something had consumed every trace of humanity's presence. Daniel raised a brow. You see, for centuries, the galaxy believed humans lacked discipline. Too emotional, too chaotic, too dramatic. But what you didn't realize is that we only show our chaos when we feel safe. When we feel threatened, we reorganize faster than any species you've ever encountered. A feathered diplomat whispered shakily. Where did you relocate your fleets? Daniel tapped the map. Red lines appeared, crisscrossing the galaxy like spiderwebs drawn by a meticulous artist. We repositioned them, he said softly. Not away from danger. Toward it. An amphibious delegate croaked. Toward us? Daniel's eyes warmed. Not you. Well, not most of you. Humanity bears no hatred for entire civilizations. Only for those who earn it. He turned as a small alien waddled forward, trembling. Is this retaliation? Daniel considered the question thoughtfully. Retaliation? No. Retaliation implies anger. This is response. Grief. Efficiency. You murdered 5 million women, each one loved by someone. Humans don't retaliate when grieving. We correct. The chamber shivered. Even the ventilation systems seemed to hesitate. In the following minutes, transmissions erupted across the Senate. Priority channels, encrypted channels, distress channels. Dozens came from border sectors. Alien admirals shouted, panicked, describing impossible readings. Ships that weren't there suddenly were. Fleets that should have been visible couldn't be detected by any spectrum. One captain swore he saw a shadow the size of a moon drift silently past his outpost, blocking every sensor before vanishing like smoke. The king leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Your people wouldn't dare attack sovereign territory. Daniel gave a sympathetic tilt of the head. Your Majesty, humans dare many things. We dared to fly when told we belonged on the ground. We dared to cross oceans when we barely understood the stars. We dared to weaponize space debris when money got tight. A reptilian envoy hissed. This is madness. Daniel shrugged mildly. Humanity often appears mad right before proving everyone else wrong. Across the chamber, an ancient coral-skinned elder rose slowly. Her species had survived 10 galactic cataclysms, and she studied Daniel with the sorrow of someone recognizing an old disaster returning. Human boy, she rasped. What have your people done? Daniel met her gaze with quiet respect. We have activated our extinction protocol. Several species screamed outright. The king roared with laughter. Extinction protocol? Ridiculous. Humans lack the resources. Daniel's smile thinned. Resources? No. Motivation? Absolutely. The Senate map zoomed out. Red markers multiplied, pulsing across dozens of sectors. A mechanical species sputtered. How did you move entire fleets without hyperspace signatures? Daniel spread his hands. We stopped using hyperspace. Too predictable. Too easy to track. Humans prefer creative solutions. He touched his console and a new image appeared. A floating megastructure shaped like a sphere split into jagged petals, rotating slowly in the dark. This is the Chimera Gate, he explained. A human-built tunneling array capable of folding space without leaving detectable trails. Took us 300 years. We finished it the night your king executed our women. Silence fell with crushing force. The king sputtered, impossible. No one hides such a project for centuries. Daniel gave an apologetic shrug. Humans are very good at pretending to be incompetent. Helps with funding. Delegates shifted nervously. Someone whispered. They hit a superstructure the size of a starport? Another muttered. How did they feed the workers? Daniel smirked. Pizza. Humans build anything when pizza is involved. The humor slid away abruptly as another red marker flickered on screen, this one surrounded by distress beacons. The chamber audio crackled alive, revealing a panicked admiral of the Trihorn Dominion. Emergency! Human vessels have bypassed our perimeter fields. They're not firing, but they're disabling everything. Communications, engines, gravity, they're everywhere. They're smiling at us through the windows. Why are they smiling? The transmission cut. Daniel cleared his throat gently. Please don't misunderstand. Humanity does not wish to destroy your fleets. We are simply tidying, removing obstacles, ensuring no one stands between us and justice. A crystal-bodied species rang hollowly. Justice? Or revenge? Daniel's voice softened like velvet draped over steel. Both. The king slammed his fist down again. You will cease this insanity or face annihilation. Daniel blinked innocently. Annihilation? Oh dear. We tried that once. Didn't like it. He stepped closer to the throne, his footsteps echoing too loudly in the panicked silence. You misunderstand the situation, Your Majesty. Humanity isn't asking permission. We aren't negotiating. We aren't bargaining for peace. You took our women. Now we are taking your power. The king rose, towering over him, but for once the height meant nothing. Daniel's expression didn't change. His calm was unnerving, the calm of someone who had seen worse monsters than this ruler and walked away untouched. You think you can challenge me? The king snarled. I have crushed empires. Oh, undoubtedly, Daniel replied warmly. But you made one miscalculation. Humans don't fear empires. We become them when necessary. More transmissions flooded the chamber. Pirate clans wiped out without explosions, outposts disabled without casualties, entire armadas forced into powerless drift, while human ships hovered silently around them like polite executioners waiting for permission to begin. Every report confirmed the same truth. Humanity wasn't attacking. Humanity was positioning. Preparing. A nervous diplomat whispered. What is Phase 1? Daniel inhaled slowly, savoring the tension. Phase 1 is simple. Remove distractions. Secure mobility. Establish dominance. The elder coral-skinned creature whispered. And Phase 2? Daniel's eyes softened. Phase 2 is where it becomes personal. 20 screens lit simultaneously, displaying the same image. A vast shadow massing at the edge of royal space, slowly revealing itself as thousands upon thousands of human dreadnoughts. No insignias, no lights, no visible propulsion. Just silent, patient titans waiting for a command. The chamber reeled. Several delegates fainted again. The king's voice cracked. What do you intend to do with that fleet? Daniel gave the smallest, softest smile of the entire session, one so gentle it was terrifying. We intend, he said, to knock politely. The map zoomed further as the dreadnoughts advanced in seamless formation, each movement precise, calculated, inevitable. Daniel spoke quietly, as though sharing a secret with old friends. Humanity's patience has limits. You discovered one of them. He glanced up at the king, voice dropping to a whisper that carried through the hall like a blade sliding free of its sheath. And now, Your Majesty. Phase 2 has begun. The dreadnoughts emerged from the darkness like ancient beasts rising from the ocean floor, their hulls absorbing light rather than reflecting it. No banners, no identification codes, no comforting signal markers. Just silence, heavy, deliberate, suffocating silence that unsettled even the most war-hardened alien captains. Across the galaxy, every species tuned in to the broadcast of those slow, coordinated movements. It looked less like a fleet advancing, and more like a judgment approaching. Ambassador Daniel Reed watched the live projection from the Senate chamber balcony, hands folded neatly behind him. He looked almost serene, the faintest hint of nostalgia softening his expression, as though watching old friends return home after a long voyage. The aliens behind him didn't share his calm. They gathered in a trembling semicircle, whispering frantically about power ratios, cloaking impossibilities, and the unfathomable precision of the formation. One diplomat croaked, "Humans do not possess such technology." Daniel tilted his head. "We do now." Another sputtered, "Your ships move like a single organism." "Well," Daniel replied, "humans cooperate unusually well when we're heartbroken." A murmur rippled through the room. An insectoid scholar clicked anxiously. Your species should be in chaos. 5 million dead, your structure should have collapsed. Daniel exhaled softly through his nose. You misunderstand humanity. Grief doesn't shatter us. It fuses us. Gives us clarity. Purpose. He took a slow step toward them, boots echoing faintly on the polished stone. You think our strength is innovation or adaptability. But the real power of humanity, the part no one ever wants to see, is what happens when we decide something is unacceptable. The chamber door hissed open behind him. A small, trembling courier rushed in and stammered. Ambassador, urgent intercept, human commanders requesting clearance. Daniel raised his wrist console. A hologram blinked on. Commander Ruiz, a broad-shouldered woman with a voice like rolling thunder. She didn't salute. She didn't smile. Her eyes were flat, unflinching. Sir, Phase 2 positioning complete. Targets surrounded. 0 casualties on all fronts. Daniel nodded. Thank you, Commander. Maintain restraint. Ruiz hesitated. And if they resist? Daniel's smile didn't reach his eyes. Humans always knock politely before entering. If they lock the door, remove the door. Ruiz disappeared. The aliens collectively recoiled. One stammered, You're monsters. Daniel chuckled softly. Only sometimes. Usually when provoked. The king rose from his throne, robes hissing across the ground. His voice attempted authority, but wavered beneath the weight of fear. Human, you have violated every treaty, every galactic code, every rule. Daniel turned to him slowly. And you violated 5 million families. The king snarled. 5 million insignificant mammals. A subtle shift crossed Daniel's expression. Not anger, but something colder, something that made even the air seem to draw back. They were not insignificant to us. For a moment, no one breathed. Daniel's voice lowered, growing dangerously gentle. You believed humans were fragile. Soft. Emotional to a fault. But you never studied us properly. You saw us laugh too loudly, argue over tiny things, eat unhealthy food, watch terrible movies, and assumed we were foolish. You saw the noise, the chaos, the warmth. And you mistook it all for weakness. He stepped toward the king with a slow, deliberate stride. But the truth, Daniel continued, is that humans learned long ago to hide our sharpest instincts behind kindness. A smile is our camouflage. Humor is our shield. Softness is our warning. The king backed up a step. And when someone takes from us, when someone hurts us in a way that scars the collective soul of humanity, we do not howl. We do not wail. We become quiet. Terrifyingly quiet. The screen behind them shifted, displaying the human fleet now encircling the king's royal territory. Not firing. Just waiting. Engines humming like predators pacing the border of a cage. Daniel gazed up. Look at them. Those ships aren't symbols of war. They're symbols of decision. Humanity didn't mobilize because we want to conquer you. We mobilized because you forced us into a moment where the only choices were vengeance or extinction. He looked back at the crowd. We chose vengeance politely. An ancient coral-skinned elder approached him, leaning heavily on her staff. Human child, she rasped. You are choosing a path that can burn the galaxy. Daniel met her gaze with profound respect. Then the galaxy should not have chosen to burn us first. A deafening tremor vibrated through the chamber as royal defense grids activated across the king's palace. Towering shield pylons rose like jagged spears around the capital world. A swarm of interceptors took flight, engines flaring bright red. The king grinned triumphantly, regaining false confidence. See? You cannot touch me. My defenses are impenetrable. Daniel looked at the screens without blinking. Your Majesty, you built defenses against force, not against intention. The royal interceptors fired a barrage toward the human dreadnoughts. Before the blasts left the atmosphere, the dreadnoughts shimmered, then vanished. Not teleported. Not cloaked. Simply ceased to be there. The blasts hit nothing. A gasp echoed around the chamber as the dreadnoughts reappeared immediately behind the interceptors. Daniel sighed. Humans hate wasting ammunition. The dreadnoughts didn't fire. Instead, they emitted a low-frequency pulse. Every interceptor's engines flickered, died, and the ships drifted like lifeless petals falling through space. The king screamed. "This is impossible!" Daniel folded his arms. Impossible is just what we call tomorrow's engineering. Another tremor thundered through the hall. A transmission lit up the main screen. Commander Ruiz again. Ambassador. All royal defenses neutralized. No casualties except their pride. Proceeding to Phase 3. Daniel stared at the king, whose face had drained of all color. "Not yet," Daniel replied. "There's still something the galaxy needs to understand before we move forward." He stepped into the center of the hall, his voice calm, resonant. "Humanity's power doesn't come from our weapons, our technology, or our tactics. It comes from our grief, our unity, our refusal to accept injustice as fate." His gaze hardened. "That is the human factor. The part you never accounted for." The Senate chamber felt colder than vacuum. Then his wrist console blinked with a message that made even Daniel's expression falter. A recovered data file. Coordinates. Genetic signatures. The missing women. Daniel breathed out slowly. "Commander," he whispered. "Prepare Phase 3. He looked at the king, eyes dark as a collapsing star. "We found them." The moment Daniel received the coordinates, the air around him shifted. It wasn't visible, not something the trembling alien diplomats could point to, but they felt it instinctively. The change in pressure, the sudden focus sharpening behind his eyes, the way his breath deepened like a man preparing to plunge into icy water. The screen above the Senate glowed with red-marked sectors, each one a location tied to the missing 5 million. Some dots blinked faintly, indicating faint life signatures. Others remained dark, marking mass graves disguised as research outposts. Daniel inhaled slowly, letting the horror settle inside him like a quiet, controlled flame. "Commander Ruiz," he said softly, "initiate full deployment. Begin Operation Alien Extinction 2.0. Across the galaxy, humanity's dreadnoughts adjusted course with a precision so seamless it looked like instinct. They descended upon the targeted sectors with silent wrath, slipping through defenses as though the universe itself parted for them. Alien militaries tried to defend their installations, but nothing slowed the incoming storm. Every human ship moved with cold purpose. No hesitation, no communication chatter, just unwavering obedience to a single, unified objective. The king, pale beneath his ornate crown, stumbled backward as the scale of the operation revealed itself. "You would destroy 1,000 star systems over your pitiful women?" He spat. Daniel didn't look at him. "I would destroy 1,000 galaxies to retrieve one." His voice held no trembling, no rage. Only truth delivered with devastating calm. "And you took millions." He stepped toward the main display as humanity's Phase 3 began. Dreadnoughts unleashed gravitational lances, beams that did not explode or burn, but folded space around their targets, crushing fleets into neat spirals of compressed matter. There was no debris left to drift, no battles lingering. Everything was erased with the clinical efficiency of surgeons removing tumors. Interceptor squadrons attempted counterattacks, but every salvo passed harmlessly through human shields, bending around them like water around stone. Human ships returned fire only when necessary, and when they did it was silent, a flicker, a flash, a vanishing. Whole carriers blinked out of existence without a sound. The king watched in horror. "You are monsters." Daniel tilted his head. "Only when required." Another enemy fleet dissolved on the screen. "And you required quite a lot." As human landing teams breached the first containment sites, live footage streamed into the Senate. Dark corridors lit by flickering lamps revealed what the king had hidden. Women huddled behind force fields, others strapped to cold metal slabs, some wearing identification tags from colonies long believed destroyed. Alien scientists fled in terror as human soldiers advanced with disciplined fury. Plasma rifles held steady, voices calm and focused. One scientist begged for mercy, blubbering that he was just following orders. The human lieutenant shot him without breaking stride. "So are we," she said, stepping over his collapsed form as she freed a trembling survivor. Daniel closed his eyes briefly, absorbing the faces on the screen. Women covered in bruises, women too weak to stand, women who stared into the camera with wide, hollow eyes that carried the weight of a million graves. Quietly, so softly that only the closest diplomats heard him, he whispered, "I'm sorry we took so long." More human soldiers arrived, escorting survivors into medships, wrapping shivering bodies in blankets while scanning for implants. For every life rescued, another site revealed genocide. Bone fragments swept into piles, data logs detailing experiments meant to break humanity at the genetic level. A trembling assistant whispered, "They plan to erase you." Daniel answered, "And now they will be erased instead." The chamber shook as the king activated his planet's last defense, a planetary shield fueled by siphoning energy from its own core. It glowed golden, swirling with trapped lightning. "You cannot breach this," he screamed. "I will outlast you." Daniel watched the shield rise like a molten sun. "Commander Ruiz," he said calmly, "you know what to do." Ruiz's voice crackled through the speakers. "Cycling the Chimera lances." The dreadnoughts surrounding the capital world realigned, forming a perfect sphere around the planet. Their hulls glowed with dark energy, bending starlight into spirals. Then the beams fired, not as weapons, but as precise distortions of reality. The shield vibrated violently, its golden surface warping like heated glass. Cracks formed, glittering like veins. Within seconds, the entire structure shattered with a sound like the universe itself exhaling. The king fell to his knees. Daniel approached him slowly, each step deliberate. "You believed humans were weak," he said. "You believed our emotions were vulnerabilities. But they were our map, leading us straight to the truth you tried to bury." The king snarled weakly. You are vengeful savages." Daniel crouched before him, his voice soft enough to break bone. "No. We are civilized creatures pushed past forgiveness." He reached out and gently removed the king's crown. "And civilization requires consequences." At that moment, the dreadnoughts initiated the final stage. A quantum lock sealed the capital system, trapping every hostile vessel inside. Time around the king's empire thickened, slowing to a crawl. Human ships fired crystalline charges that entered the atmosphere silently. They detonated with no fire, no sound, only a bright pulse that erased matter wherever it passed. Cities evaporated. War factories crumpled inward. Armies vanished between one heartbeat and the next. The king screamed, clawing at the floor as his empire disintegrated. "Stop! I surrender. Please." Daniel shook his head gently. "Your Majesty, surrender is for the living." The last charge descended upon the palace, enveloping the throne room in creeping white light. Daniel stepped back, watching the king evaporate into dust with the same calm a doctor uses when turning off a machine keeping a patient alive. No hatred. No joy. Just duty. When the palace dissolved entirely, Daniel finally exhaled. "Commander," he said, "Operation Alien Extinction 2.0 is complete." But before relief could settle, a new transmission cut across every channel. A single, eerie sentence echoed through the chamber. "Phase 4 authorization detected. Unknown human command source." Daniel's breath hitched. Someone else had activated the next stage.